snow drifts endlessly, each flake descending with the grace of a secret that has waited too long to be spoken. In the stillness of the night, imagine a palace standing alone at the edge of the world, not carved from stone, but sculpted from layers of frozen breath, towering spires of crystalline frost rising like prayers that never quite reached the heavens. The silence here is so deep that it hums, the kind of silence that feels alive, as though it carries its own hidden heartbeat. Within these vast and echoing halls the Ice King wanders. Pause, it is not a palace of celebration or feasts. It is not warmed by fire nor filled with the bustle of servants. It is instead a kingdom of absence. Every corridor echoes with what is no longer there. Every wall glimmers faintly, reflecting not faces or laughter, but only the wanderer himself, cloaked in robes as pale as the snow outside, his crown shimmering faintly with an ancient light. This is where we begin our journey. Inside the palace of forgotten snow, where time slows and memory itself turns brittle. The Ice King was not always this solitary figure. Once long ago he was Simon, a man who walked beneath warm skies, who laughed with friends, who carried in his arms a little girl who would one day be called Marceline. He was a man of books, whose coat smelled of old paper and gentle smoke. But the crown he found, or perhaps the crown that found him, changed the fabric of his being. With each day, its whispers grew louder, until memory began to fall from him like autumn leaves in a storm. His past did not vanish all at once. It crumbled, piece by piece, until he awoke one morning to find himself no longer Simon, but something colder, something lonelier. The snowflakes that fall within his halls are not ordinary. They drift from nowhere, summoned from the crown's sorrow. Each one might be seen as a fragment of memory, delicate and brief, dissolving the moment it touches the warmth of skin. Some flakes shimmer with images, the smile of a woman he once loved, the sound of a melody he once hummed, the flash of sunlight on a city now long buried. But he does not hold them. He cannot, for if he tried, they would melt, and the pain of their loss would be too sharp. So he lets them fall and fall and fall until his palace is filled with them. Dreams are much like these snowflakes. They drift into us during the night, fragile and fleeting, and when we awaken we hold only fragments. Do you ever wonder if your dreams are not inventions of the mind, but scattered memories from another self, another time? Perhaps in sleep we step through cracks in the world, visiting places we once knew but have since forgotten. If so, then the Ice King lives forever in such a dream, unable to awaken, unable to step fully back into the warmth of the past. The crown upon his head is no ordinary jewel. It is not simply a treasure or a trinket. It is a doorway, a binding, a weight. Through it he touched knowledge, yes, but also madness. Knowledge is like snow. When it falls gently, it is beautiful, nourishing, silent. But when it comes in storms, endlessly, it blinds, buries, and freezes. The Ice King stood too long in that storm, and so the man he was became buried beneath drifts of thought and time. Yet there is still beauty here. The palace, for all its sorrow, shines like a cathedral of glass. Light bends through icicles like prisms, scattering colors across the empty floors. Each corridor resonates with the faint crackle of frost, as if the palace itself were humming softly to keep him company. It is a reminder that even in loneliness there can be art. Even in loss there can be wonder. Perhaps this is the paradox of the Ice King, that his curse created a kingdom so beautiful it aches to look upon, and yet left him too broken to truly see it. When we reflect on him, we might ask, do we too carry our own palaces of snow? Places within our minds where old memories are kept, too fragile to touch directly, so we let them drift instead? Perhaps every heart is such a palace, filled with fragments of what has been forgotten, but never fully gone. The Ice King teaches us, in his sorrowful way, that what is forgotten is not truly erased. It waits in silence, like snow gathering in corners, patient and eternal. And maybe, just maybe, the act of remembering is not about recalling perfectly, but about sitting quietly, letting the snow fall, and feeling in its presence both the ache and the beauty of being alive. As we leave this first chamber of frost, we carry with us the image of snowflakes falling without end, each one a memory, each one a dream. Pause. Ahead lies more. Crowns and burdens, songs and shadows, dreams that freeze and thaw. The palace stretches onward, and our wandering has only begun. The crown rests quietly upon a pedestal of frost, glowing faintly in the half-light of the frozen palace. It gleams with the cool shimmer of deep seas and faraway stars, though no fire burns within it. To behold it is to feel both awe and unease, for the crown is beautiful in its design, yet heavy in its silence. Pause. One can almost imagine it breathing, waiting, listening. When Simon first discovered it, the crown did not announce itself with thunder or warning. It was merely an object, mysterious and alluring, as many relics of ancient times are, and yet, to touch it was to open a door. Not outward into the world, but inward, into the mind. The crown spoke, though not in words. It whispered with images, with promises of safety, with shadows of futures that could be avoided only through its power. Simon placed it upon his head, perhaps only intending to borrow its strength. But the crown does not lend. It takes, little by little, until what remains of the wearer is no longer whole. Its weight is peculiar. The crown is not heavy to the body, it is heavy to the soul. It does not strain the neck, but burdens the heart. It fills the air around its bearer with a constant pressure, like the low hum of an unseen wind. This is the true burden Simon carried, not simply the loss of self, but the endless noise of a voice that was not entirely his own. We might pause here to reflect. What crowns do we ourselves wear? Perhaps not of gold or sapphire, but invisible one, woven of duty, responsibility, memory. There are crowns made of grief, crowns made of expectation, crowns passed down by family or fate. At times they lift us, reminding us of who we are meant to be. At other times they tighten, pressing against our temples, leaving us weary and unsure. What makes such a crown a blessing, and what makes it a curse? Perhaps it is not the crown itself, but how we bear it. Simon bore his crown as best he could. At first he resisted. He spoke to himself, reminding himself of his name, of the woman he loved, of the child he protected. But resistance against eternity is like trying to stop the tide with bare hands. Slowly, gently, the crown eroded him. His laughter became strange, edged with frost. His desires shifted, drawn to obsessions he could not name. And yet, deep within, a flicker of Simon remained, a fragile ember glowing in the cold. It is said that when the Ice King wept, it was Simon's tears breaking through, mourning silently within the storm. The crown's jewels gleam like eyes, but what do they see? Some say they hold the memories of those who forged them, echoes of an age long before kingdoms rose or fell. If so, then the Ice King was not merely cursed. He was possessed by the weight of history itself. Perhaps the crown was never meant for human hands. Perhaps no single mind could carry so much eternity without unraveling. And yet Simon did. He carried it longer than most, a testament not to weakness but to love. For he wore it first to protect Marceline, to shield her in a world turned to ash. His burden began with love, even if it ended with loneliness. Pause. Think of that for a moment. How many burdens in our lives began with love? How many responsibilities we carry because we cared too deeply to put them down? A child held in the arms of a parent, a promise spoken to a friend, a memory of someone long gone yet never released. The crown teaches us, in its cruel way, that love can both save and bind us. To love is to accept a weight, and yet that weight is also what gives meaning. In the halls of the frozen palace, the crown sits upon its king as though it belongs there. Yet even now one wonders, who rules whom? Is the Ice King the master of the crown, or merely its vessel? Power can feel like mastery, but true mastery lies in knowing when to remove the crown, to set it down gently, and to walk away. The tragedy is that Simon could not. The crown had become part of him, a voice so entwined with his own that silence itself would have felt like death. As we leave this chamber, we might ask ourselves, what is the weight we carry? And do we carry it with grace or with despair? Perhaps the art of life is not in discarding crowns altogether, but in learning how to balance them. Not too tightly, not too loosely, but with a patience that allows us to endure. The crown gleams softly as the night deepens. Its burden remains, but so does the memory of why it was first worn, for love, not power. Pause. And so we step onward from this hall of burden into the realm of memory, where songs and shadows entwine. The palace grows quieter as we wander deeper. The snow no longer falls here. Instead, the air holds a strange stillness, as if even time hesitates to intrude. Along the frozen walls, faint echoes linger. Not the sound of shattering ice, but the memory of a song once sung. It is gentle, melodic, and tinged with sorrow. The voice belongs to Marceline, the vampire queen, whose heart remembers what the world has tried to erase. She remembers Simon, not the Ice King with wild eyes and desperate laughter, but the man who walked beside her when the sky burned red and the earth trembled with ruin. She remembers the scent of his worn coat as he wrapped it around her shoulders, the way its heavy fabric smelled faintly of paper, ink, and the smoke of old candles. She remembers the warmth of his arms, the steadiness of his voice as he promised she was not alone. Those memories are her treasures, and though the centuries have reshaped her, they remain unbroken within her heart. But memory, like ice, has sharp edges. To remember Simon is also to feel the loss of him, the slow vanishing of the man beneath the crown's frost. One day, his words began to fracture. His laughter, once warm, grew strained and frantic. His eyes, which had once looked upon her with tenderness, began to dart elsewhere, searching for princesses who were never her. The man who had been her protector drifted away before her eyes, leaving only fragments behind. What is more painful, to lose someone all at once, or to lose them slowly, piece by piece? And yet Marceline never let go. Even when she faced him in battle, even when his actions wounded her heart, she still carried the ember of Simon within her. In her songs his name lived on. Music became her way of remembering, her way of weaving grief into beauty. A song is more than sound. It is memory given wings. It is pain turned into rhythm. When Marceline sings of Simon, she does not only mourn him. She affirms that he existed, that he loved, that he sacrificed. In her voice, Simon is never truly gone. Dreams and nightmares entwine in this memory. For Marceline, Simon was both. A dream of safety in a broken world and a nightmare of loss when the crown claimed him. But are not many of our closest bonds like this? The very depth of love ensures the depth of pain when change comes. To love someone is to open oneself to the risk of loss, and yet, without that risk, love would mean little. The ache is proof of its reality. There are moments, even in the Ice King's madness, where Simon flickers through, when he plays songs on his keyboard, awkward and yearning, when he clings desperately to friendships, even if he does not understand them. When his voice breaks with need, one hears not only obsession but also the faint cry of a man who once cared deeply and does not know how to stop. Marceline sees this even when others cannot. And perhaps that is her gift. The ability to see the ember within the frost, the humanity within the chaos. Philosophers have asked, is memory a blessing or a curse? To remember is to keep alive what time wishes to erase, but it is also to feel the weight of what cannot return. Marceline's answer, perhaps, is both. Memory wounds, but it also heals. To forget Simon would be easier, but it would be a betrayal. By remembering, she keeps love alive, even in sorrow. We too might reflect on those we remember, who lingers in the halls of our minds even when years have passed, whose laughter still echoes faintly, like music drifting through frozen air. Memory is not simply nostalgia, it is an act of devotion. To recall is to honor, to say, you mattered, you still matter, you always will. The palace seems to soften as Marceline's song lingers. It is as if the very ice listens, absorbing the warmth of her memory. Perhaps even the crown itself trembles at the sound, reminded for a moment of the man it claimed. Memory has that power, to bend even what feels immovable, to melt even the hardest of hearts. As the song fades, the silence that follows is not empty, but full. It carries the weight of love that endures beyond time, beyond change, beyond even death. Pause. And so we leave this chamber of remembrance with gentle reverence, carrying with us the truth that memory, though painful, is also the greatest form of love. Ahead lies another landscape, the strange, frozen dreams of the Ice King himself, where reality and illusion blur together like breath upon glass. We step carefully into that realm, guided by the echoes of a song that still lingers in the air. The further one drifts into the palace, the more it begins to feel less like a place of stone and frost and more like the inside of a dream. Here the walls ripple faintly, as though they are made not of solid ice, but of memory frozen mid-breath. To walk through these corridors is to feel time loosen its grip, minutes stretching into hours, hours collapsing into moments. And in this space the Ice King's dreams bloom, fragile and unending. Pause. Imagine entering one of his dreams. At first, it looks like a forest. Trees stretch upward, but they are not made of wood. Their trunks shimmer like crystal, and their branches are glass that clinks gently against itself whenever the wind sighs. Every step upon the ground releases a faint echo, as though the earth remembers every footfall and repeats it back. It is beautiful, yes, but it is also uncanny. The leaves never fall. The rivers never flow. The sky above is painted with auroras that do not shift. The dream is frozen, alive, but never moving. The Ice King walks these landscapes night after night. He meets princesses whose faces change constantly, flickering between strangers and half-remembered loves. He chases them endlessly, yet they always remain just beyond reach. Sometimes he finds himself laughing with friends, only to see them turn into snow statues as the laughter fades into silence. Other times, he sees Marceline as a child, reaching out to him, but before he can hold her, the dream shatters into shards of ice. These are not dreams that soothe. They are rehearsals of longing, looping endlessly, never granting peace. We may ask, what is a dream truly? Some say it is the mind's way of untangling itself, weaving stray thoughts into images. Others believe dreams are doors, passages into realms beyond waking, where truths hide in strange disguises. For the Ice King, dreams are cages. They trap him in the theatre of his own grief, forcing him to relive what he has lost without the power to change it. Like a moth caught in a frozen web, he flutters but cannot escape. And yet, even within these frozen dreams, there is beauty. The glass trees sparkle as though lit from within. The rivers, though unmoving, reflect the sky with perfect clarity. The auroras above ripple with colors unseen in the waking world. Sorrow, when looked at from afar, often takes on the shape of poetry. Even longing has its radiance. Perhaps that is why the Ice King does not fully reject his dreams. Perhaps some part of him lingers willingly, drinking from the bitter sweetness they offer. Dreams often blur the line between blessing and curse. Have you ever woken from a dream of comfort, only to feel sorrow that it was not real? Or from a nightmare, only to realize that its fear taught you something your waking mind ignored? The Ice King lives forever in that blurred state. To him, every dream is both a gift and a wound, a reminder of what he once had and of what he can never reclaim. Philosophers say that frozen things symbolize permanence. Ice preserves. Snow holds the shape of what it covers, but frozen dreams are different. They preserve not reality, but desire. They keep alive not what is, but what is yearned for. And to live surrounded by such frozen desire is to be pulled endlessly between hope and despair. For every glimpse of joy comes with the ache of its distance. Every smile in the dream reminds him of the silence when he wakes. And yet, perhaps this condition is not unique to him. Do we not all carry frozen dreams within us? Hopes we replay in our minds, memories we return to again and again, wishing they might still breathe. Sometimes these frozen dreams inspire us, keeping us moving forward. Other times they hold us back, making the present feel pale compared to what might have been. The Ice King's tragedy is only the most visible form of what many hearts quietly endure. In his frozen landscapes, one can also find symbols of resilience. The auroras may not move, but they glow ceaselessly. The glass trees may never shed their leaves, but they do not shatter. Even the frozen rivers remain, reflecting stars with unbroken patience. Perhaps the dream itself whispers a hidden lesson that even in stillness there is survival. Even in sorrow there is beauty worth noticing. As dawn approaches in this palace of frost, the Ice King stirs from his endless dreaming, though he never fully wakes. His eyes blink, his crown glimmers faintly, but the dreams cling to him like frost upon branches. He does not escape them. He carries them into his waking hours, speaking their fragments aloud, chasing after their shadows. His life becomes a blur between dream and reality, nightmare and memory. Pause. We step gently away from this chamber, carrying with us the thought that frozen dreams are never wholly futile. They may wound, but they also remind us of what we most deeply long for. And sometimes, even the ache of longing is a kind of proof that we are alive. Beyond this hall, the palace opens into deeper corridors where the past and future intertwine. It is there that stories of forgotten friends, lost wishes, and the delicate balance of love and madness will unfold. The night, like the dream, is far from over. The palace shifts again as though it senses our movement. The air grows denser, heavy with echoes. In this chamber, shadows gather not as enemies, but as reminders. Here, the Ice King's thoughts turn toward friendship. Not the fleeting bonds he clumsily tried to force upon princesses, but the deeper companionships he once held and then lost. Simon, before the crown, was not a solitary man. He was a scholar, yes, but also a friend. His days were filled with laughter shared across tables, with conversations about music, history, and art. He had a fiancée he cherished, companions he trusted, and a world that welcomed him. Friendship then was natural, effortless, a river flowing without obstruction. But when the crown claimed him, the river froze. Companionship became something he could only chase, never truly hold. Think of the way he clung to Finn and Jake. To them, it seemed strange, his desperate need for approval, his insistence that they play, that they stay near him, that they call him their friend. But beneath his erratic behavior lay the aching echo of what he once had. He was not simply being foolish. He was trying, however imperfectly, to rebuild a bridge that the crown had shattered. Every knock on Finn and Jake's treehouse door was less an intrusion and more a cry. Remember me, see me, don't let me vanish. Friendship, in its truest form, is a mirror. It reflects us back to ourselves, reminding us that we exist not in isolation, but in relation. Without such mirrors, the self begins to blur. That is what happened to the Ice King. Without the steady gaze of friends who knew him as Simon, he became lost in his own reflection, distorted and fractured. His frantic need for companionship was the natural hunger of a soul starved for recognition. We might ask ourselves here, how often do we take friendship for granted? How often do we assume it will simply endure without tending? A friend's presence is not guaranteed. Like snowflakes, friendships are delicate, and once melted, they cannot be remade in exactly the same form. The Ice King's tragedy is not only that he lost friends, but that he remembered just enough of what friendship once felt like to crave it endlessly. There are glimpses, even in his madness, of what friendship meant to him. When he risked himself for Marceline, when he showed Finn and Jake fragments of sincerity beneath the chaos, when he played songs on his keyboard, hoping someone might hear the meaning between the notes. These are not the acts of a man who wished only to annoy. They are the gestures of someone reaching through the frost, searching for a hand to grasp. The palace around us seems to lean closer, its icy walls whispering faintly, as though it remembers too. After all, places hold echoes of those who gather within them. Perhaps this frozen hall holds the laughter of Simon's forgotten friends, their voices preserved in the same way snow preserves footprints. The Ice King cannot hear them clearly, but something within him responds to the silence, mistaking it for absence when it is, in fact, memory. Philosophers have long mused on the paradox of friendship, that it is both fragile and eternal. Fragile because it depends on time, presence and care. Eternal because once two souls have touched, the imprint remains forever, even if the bond fades in waking life. In dreams, in half-remembered feelings, in the sudden ache when hearing a song, we realize that friendships never vanish entirely. They become part of us, shaping who we are, even if their form changes. For the Ice King, this paradox is a daily torment. His friendships are both gone and present. He cannot reach them, yet he cannot escape them. They haunt him as longing, as obsession, as loneliness. And still he tries. Perhaps that is what redeems him. Not success, but persistence. Even broken, he continues to seek connection, proof that the ember of Simon's heart has never fully gone out. We too live with the ache of lost friends. Some drift away quietly, their absence marked only by silence where once there was laughter. Others depart abruptly, leaving an emptiness that feels like a missing limb. Yet, in either case, the truth is the same. What was shared remains. Like the palace of forgotten snow, our hearts carry chambers filled with their echoes, ready to be visited when we close our eyes as we step gently from this hall. We might carry with us the reminder that friendship is not guaranteed, nor is it endless in form, but its essence, once touched, endures. To cherish a friend in the present is to honor a treasure that even time cannot wholly erase. Pause. The palace beckons us onward, toward deeper chambers where not only friendship but love, memory, and destiny converge. Ahead lies the place where dreams blur into prophecy, where the Ice King's burdens take on new shapes, part nightmare, part revelation. The palace grows darker as we descend, though darkness here is not empty. It gleams faintly like obsidian touched by a thin layer of frost. The air is still, but within that stillness lives an echo, a resonance of thought and memory. This is the chamber of mirrors, not glass ones, but ice, polished by centuries of silence. Each surface reflects the Ice King, though never in the same form. Some images are young, some weary, some lost in laughter, some weeping into the cold. Here, the mirrors tell truths he cannot accept, and lies he cannot dismiss. Or's madness, after all, is not simply chaos of the mind. It is often a form of reflection too sharp, too distorted, too unrelenting. When the Ice King gazes into these frozen mirrors, he sees fragments of Simon Petrikov, the man he once was. He sees the scholar with bright eyes carrying ancient texts beneath his arm. He sees the lover whispering vows of devotion. But the mirrors never hold still. They shimmer and shift until Simon's face melts into the jagged grin of the Ice King, his crown heavy upon his brow. It is a cruel irony. The mirrors remind him of what he has lost, yet they also erase those memories by flooding them with images of his current form. If you were to stand here long enough, would you not also question who you are?
Are we only what we remember?
Or are we what others see when they gaze at us? The Ice King's madness is not absolute destruction. It is a shifting equilibrium, a pendulum swinging between Simon and the Ice King, never resting in either state. That is why he clings to dreams, to scraps of stories, to songs half-remembered. Dreams give him glimpses of Simon, madness steals them away. The mirrors show both, and so they torment him endlessly. When philosophers speak of the self, they often debate whether we are continuous beings or whether we are, each day, reborn anew. The Ice King is both arguments embodied. In him, the continuity of Simon lingers like a ghost, whispering through his desires and memories. Yet each day, he awakens as someone else, a being whose choices, mannerisms, and even language diverge from who he once was. He is a broken bridge across a river of time. Perhaps, though, we all live in such mirrors. Consider the way we shift when with friends, with strangers, with family. Each face we wear is a reflection drawn out by those around us. Who, then, is the true self? The Ice King's curse is only an exaggeration of our common fate, to be many selves across many mirrors and to never fully reconcile them. Here, in the chamber, the mirrors seem to breathe. They do not merely reflect. They pulse with emotion, responding to our gaze. When we look closer, we see not only Simon and the Ice King, but ourselves. Our own faces shimmer faintly in the frost, altered and exaggerated. One reflection smiles kindly, another frowns in judgment, another appears weary, another radiant. The ice suggests a truth. That madness is not a single condition, but a spectrum of selves, a kaleidoscope of possibility. The Ice King, stumbling between his reflections, tries to speak with them. Sometimes he scolds, sometimes he pleads, sometimes he laughs nervously at his own absurdity. Yet none of the mirrors answer. They can only offer his own words back to him distorted. Imagine the loneliness of that, to cry out and receive only your own cry in return, twisted just enough to sound like someone else. Is this not the very definition of isolation? And yet there is beauty here too.
Madness is not solely a prison.
It is also a canvas. The Ice King paints upon his mirrors with fragments of story, with songs invented in delirium, with visions too strange for the waking mind. His creations, however incoherent, carry glimmers of genius. For in the shifting kaleidoscope, sometimes the fragments align, and a pattern emerges so intricate that it feels like prophecy. The question remains, does he know this, or is he merely a vessel for patterns he cannot understand? Perhaps the crown, cruel as it is, sometimes opens doors of vision that ordinary minds could not withstand. Perhaps in the mirror of madness, truths about the world are revealed, fleeting, shimmering, gone before they can be spoken. We step back from the mirrors. They continue to shimmer, showing versions of ourselves and the Ice King alike. The chamber does not condemn him, nor does it absolve him. It simply reflects. Perhaps that is the essence of madness, to live in a world that will not stop reflecting until the self dissolves in its endless repetition. As we leave, the air grows colder still. Beyond this hall lies another, one not of mirrors but of echoes. If reflection is the language of madness, then echo is the language of memory. And it is there we now journey, into the chamber where forgotten voices call faintly through the frost. The passage narrows as though the palace itself wishes to draw us inward, guiding us like a whisper. The walls are closer now, their frost patterned like veins of crystal. Ahead, the silence shifts. It is not empty but alive, trembling faintly with sound. We step into a vast cavern, and the hush breaks into echoes. Faint, disjointed, fragile. This is the chamber where voices linger long after their owners have gone. The chamber of echoes. Pause. Here, the Ice King often wandered without meaning to. His mutterings would bounce back to him, his laughter replayed in tones he no longer recognized. Sometimes the echoes were cruel, reminding him of words he regretted. Sometimes they were tender, surprising him with a forgotten lullaby or a name spoken long ago. Marceline, Betty, Finn, Jake, all of them have left their impressions in these walls. Like snow that holds the memory of every footstep, the ice carries the memory of every sound. The echoes do not distinguish between past and present. They mingle, overlap, weave together into a tapestry of voices. In one moment you hear Simon's scholarly cadence, clear and earnest. In the next, you hear the high-pitched ramblings of the Ice King, desperate for attention. The voices blur like layers of paint upon a canvas, neither erasing nor wholly revealing one another. What, after all, is an echo but time folding in on itself? A moment repeated, stretched, extended just beyond its natural life. In this sense, echoes are the closest we come to immortality. Words may fade, but here they return, softened, altered, enduring. The Ice King's tragedy is that he cannot tell where the echoes end and where his own thoughts begin. He hears Betty sometimes, or so he believes. Her voice hums through the frost, calling him back to the man he once was, yet it is never whole.
A syllable breaks off, a phrase repeats, a tone shifts.
He chases her through the chamber, begging her to remain, but it is only the walls returning his own longing. Still, in his madness, he treats the echoes as companions. He sings to them, tells them stories, even argues when they seem to mock him. Perhaps we all do this in subtler ways. How often do we talk to memories as though they can answer? The Chamber of Echoes reminds us that memory itself is an echo. Never exact, never complete, always softened by distance. We think we recall moments clearly, but in truth we remember the memory of them. Echoes of echoes, fading with each repetition. Yet even in distortion they hold beauty. Sometimes what is forgotten allows us to focus on what truly mattered. The warmth of a laugh, the kindness of a glance, the comfort of a hand in hours. The Ice King clings to these fragments, though he cannot name them. Here the echoes also reveal another truth. We leave imprints even when we are unaware. Every word spoken, every sigh, every laugh leaves a trace. Our lives ripple outward, caught by the world around us, preserved in ways we do not see. The Ice King, lost as he is, remains part of the tapestry. His cries, his songs, his nonsense all weave into the fabric of this frozen hall. Perhaps this is a kind of redemption here that even madness contributes to the chorus of existence. The chamber resonates softly now as though it wishes to join our reflection. It hums with overlapping voices, none clear, yet all meaningful. What if the universe itself is a chamber of echoes? Every star a note, every life a sound, each one reverberating endlessly, colliding, combining, creating harmony and dissonance alike. If so, then no voice is ever truly lost. Not Simon's, not Betty's, not yours. The Ice King, in his loneliness, has unknowingly stumbled upon this truth. He treats the echoes as real because, in a way, they are. They are not illusions, but reminders. They may not hold the whole of Betty or Marceline, but they carry enough to keep their presence alive. He is mocked for it, perhaps, but There is a quiet wisdom beneath his madness, to listen for what lingers even when others insist it is gone. We stand in the chamber a while longer, listening. At first the sound seems random, chaotic, but as we grow still, patterns emerge, rhythms like a heartbeat, cadences like breathing. The chamber itself is alive, not as a creature but as a memory given form. And as with all living memory, it aches to be heard. At last, the echoes fade into a softer hum, a lullaby woven from countless fragments. It is as though the palace is inviting us to rest, to let the echoes carry us into sleep. But the journey is not done. Beyond this chamber lies one even stranger, the Hall of Nightmares, where the Ice King's fears take shape, clothed in ice and shadow. If the Chamber of Echoes holds his memories, then the next hall holds his secrets. Oars, the air thickens as we move beyond the Chamber of Echoes. The gentle hum of remembered voices fades, replaced by a silence so absolute it presses upon the skin. Then, without warning, the silence fractures. A low groan ripples through the ice, and the passage opens into a cavern, vast and shadowed, the Hall of Nightmares. Here the frost does not sparkle, it swallows light, turning every surface into pools of darkness rimmed with pale blue fire. Pause. This hall is not built of memory, but of fear. The Ice King has wandered here in restless dreams, and what he carried in his heart took shape around him. Unlike echoes, which soften and blur, nightmares sharpen, exaggerate, and distort. They are mirrors too, but mirrors that mock and terrify. Shadows creep along the walls, forming figures with shifting faces. Some resemble princesses turning away from him, their eyes filled with scorn. Others resemble Finn and Jake, laughing, not in friendship but in cruelty. Still others twist into forms unnameable, fangs and claws cut from his own anxieties. And at the center of them all, one figure remains constant, Simon Petrikov, but aged and broken, standing just beyond reach. The Ice King fears many things, but none more deeply than himself. Beneath his erratic laughter and babbling songs lies the dread that he has destroyed everything he ever loved. Nightmares draw that dread into shapes that taunt him. Marceline turning her back, Betty disappearing into mist, crowns of ice multiplying endlessly, each one waiting to consume another soul. What is a nightmare, if not truth carried to extremes? We dream not of impossible horrors, but of truths twisted until they pierce us. For the Ice King, the truth is simple, e.t. he was Simon, and he is not any more. He once was loved, and now he is not. He once gave warmth, and now he spreads only frost. The nightmares make these truths monstrous, but perhaps they are monstrous already. As we walk deeper, the ground cracks beneath our steps, fissures glowing faintly with cold fire. Each crack seems to whisper, as if the earth itself has joined the chorus of fear. The Ice King has stumbled here many times, chasing after ghosts, only to collapse in sobs when the shadows overwhelm him. Yet even in nightmare there is strange refuge, for when he awakens the fear dissolves. What was unbearable a moment ago becomes mist, leaving him strangely relieved. Perhaps this is why nightmares exist, to remind us of the weight we carry unseen. They draw the poison out, showing us what haunts us, so that in waking we may feel lighter. But what happens if one never truly wakes? For the Ice King, the boundary between dream and reality is thin, blurred by the crown's magic.
Nightmares linger in his waking hours, intruding like uninvited guests.
The princesses he kidnaps are not random. They are shapes born from these shadows, desperate attempts to rewrite the story his nightmares tell. The hall seems endless, but every nightmare has a rhythm, and soon we notice it. The shadows rise and fall like waves, surging forward and then retreating.
There is a pattern even in terror.
If one can learn the rhythm, one can endure the storm. Perhaps that is why the Ice King survives at all. Though tormented, he moves with the tide, caught but never drowned. We pause at a frozen pillar, upon which images flicker like lantern slides. Here, Simon appears kneeling, placing the crown upon his head for the first time. His face holds both wonder and dread. The nightmare freezes him in that instant, as though the choice is eternal, repeated endlessly. And perhaps it is, for every moment of life once lived echoes forever. The Hall of Nightmares teaches us that fear is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a teacher to be endured. Without fear, we would not recognize courage. Without nightmares, we would not treasure peace. The Ice King does not understand this fully, but in his fumbling way, he practices it.
He endures.
He wakes each day despite the terrors of the night. There is a resilience in that, however fragile. At last, the hall begins to quiet. The shadows retreat, fading back into the walls. The cold fire dims, leaving only faint glimmers. We realize that even nightmares cannot last forever. They burn bright, but they burn out, leaving silence in their wake. And in that silence lies the possibility of rest. We turn toward the next passage, and the air grows gentler again. Beyond the Hall of Nightmares lies the Chamber of Songs, a place where the Ice King's strange music rises like fragile hope amid despair. From fear, we move toward creation. From shadow toward sound. Pause. The air grows softer as we leave the Hall of Nightmares behind. The oppressive weight of shadow loosens, replaced by a gentle hum, almost imperceptible at first. We step into a chamber vast and luminous, its walls shimmering with veins of pale blue light. Here, sound does not echo as it did before. Instead, it gathers, harmonizes, and lingers like breath upon glass. This is the Chamber of Songs. Pause. The Ice King has always been drawn to music. His keyboard, awkward and jangling, became his companion in loneliness. To others, his melodies sounded strange, childish, even absurd. But here, in this frozen chamber, they transform. Each note he once struck reverberates within the walls, polished into clarity, swelling into choirs that the Ice King himself could never hear. What left his fingers as clumsy sound is reshaped by the palace into fragile beauty. Perhaps this is the secret of music. It is never ours alone. A song belongs as much to the air that carries it, the ears that receive it, the memory that preserves it. Even the Ice King, in his solitude, could not keep his music from blossoming into something greater. His nonsensical tunes became lullabies, his rambling verses turned to hymns of yearning. We pause to listen, and the chamber itself seems to breathe in rhythm. Voices intertwine, faint but distinct. A fragment of Marceline's lullaby drifts through the frost. The murmur of Betty's laughter weaves into the melody. Even Finn and Jake's laughter, once strained by annoyance, becomes part of the harmony. It is as though the chamber refuses to discard any sound, choosing instead to fold them all together into one great, unfinished song. The Ice King often misunderstood his own music. To him, it was an outlet, a way to soothe the endless chatter of the crown, to distract himself from loneliness. But to those who listened closely, there was something more. Within the chaos lay longing. Beneath the clashing notes lay tenderness. His songs, though broken, were true. Perhaps that is why they endure here, echoing in crystalline form. Philosophers have long said that music is the soul's language.
Words may deceive, memories may fade, but melody carries truth.
Even in madness, the Ice King's soul could not help but sing. And so the chamber reveals him not as villain nor as fool, but as a man still capable of beauty. His songs are not polished symphonies, but fragile prayers. And sometimes fragile prayers are the most honest. Listening here, we cannot help but wonder, How many of our own words and gestures, dismissed as clumsy or insignificant, are secretly transfigured by the world around us? A careless word of kindness once spoken may become a cherished memory in someone else's life. A small act of love may reverberate for years, reshaped into something far greater than we imagined. Perhaps the chamber is not magical at all, but simply a reflection of this truth, that nothing given with sincerity is ever truly lost. The Ice King's music, clumsy though it was, carried sincerity. Beneath his foolishness was a heart that had not entirely frozen. His songs kept Simon alive, if only in fragments. Each verse, each melody was a thread binding the past to the present. And though no one applauded, though few understood, the songs endured because they came from love. As the melodies swell, the chamber feels almost like a cathedral, a place of reverence. The notes rise like prayers, not to gods, but to memory itself. Each song is a plea: remember me, forgive me, see me. And the palace, patient and vast, does remember. The chamber cradles his music like sacred relics, proof that even in ruin, beauty can be born. Perhaps this is the redemption of the Ice King. Not that he is restored to Simon, nor that his madness is undone, but that his yearning produced music, and that music touched the world more than he knew. Even in failure, he left a mark of tenderness upon the air. The final notes fade, leaving silence that is not empty but expectant. For beyond this chamber lies the heart of the palace, the last and deepest hall, the throne of ice, where the crown's full weight and Simon's final truth await us. It is here that dreams, memories, nightmares, and songs converge into one final reflection. Pause. The corridors grow still as we approach the palace's heart. All echoes fall silent, all songs dissolve into air. Even the frost upon the walls seems to hold its breath, waiting. The chamber opens before us in solemn grandeur, the throne of ice. Its spires rise like frozen spears, jagged and crystalline, yet strangely delicate, as though a single touch might shatter them into dust. The throne itself glows faintly with a light that is neither warm nor cold, but something older, like moonlight caught in eternal frost. Pause. Here the Ice King often sat, a ruler without a kingdom, a sovereign without subjects. To outsiders he appeared ridiculous, muttering to himself, clutching his crown, imagining a court of princesses who wanted nothing to do with him. Yet beneath that image lies something more profound. The throne was never a seat of power. It was a burden, an anchor, tying him to the weight of the crown. Each time he rested there, he was both Simon and the Ice King, scholar and fool, memory and madness. The throne made no distinction. If we listen closely, we feel the hum of the crown vibrating through the ice.
It pulses like a heartbeat, steady and inexorable.
This is the true ruler of the palace, and not the man who wears it, but the relic itself. The crown speaks in silence, weaving its will through the frost. Simon once believed he could master it, wield its magic for good. But as he sat upon this throne, he learned that the crown does not serve. It consumes, and yet, within that consumption, something curious happened. The Ice King endured. Broken though he became, he did not vanish entirely. Pieces of Simon remained, flickering like embers in the snowstorm. His love for Betty, his care for Marceline, his yearning for companionship, these were not erased, only distorted, refracted through the lens of the crown. The throne witnessed it all, the survival of love even in ruin. Perhaps this is the paradox of power. To sit upon any throne, whether of ice, gold, or stone, is to be reshaped by it. Few emerge unchanged. The throne magnifies what is within, casting both virtues and flaws into extremes. For Simon, it magnified his devotion into obsession, his longing into madness, his knowledge into delusion. Yet even as it warped him, it preserved him. The man who might have been forgotten entirely became unforgettable, if only as a tragic figure. The throne of ice gleams around us now, whispering this paradox. It reminds us that identity is rarely singular. Just as Simon became the Ice King, so too do we wear crowns of our own, crowns of memory, expectation, fear, and love. Each crown reshapes us for better or worse. And like Simon, we may never fully return to who we were before. But perhaps that is not failure.
Perhaps it is transformation. The chamber grows colder still, but not hostile.
Instead, it feels reverent, as though acknowledging the depth of Simon's struggle. He was not a flawless hero, nor a villain to be despised. He was, like us, a human soul navigating the labyrinth of time, caught between what he longed for and what he became. His throne was ice, but our thrones are many. His crown was cursed, but ours may be invisible. And yet, the weight can feel just as heavy. We stand before the throne and imagine him there, crown upon his brow, humming fragments of forgotten songs. His eyes flicker between wildness and sorrow, his hands gripping the armrests as though they anchor him in reality. Perhaps he feels the palace breathing with him, its frozen walls responding to his every thought. Perhaps he senses the presence of Simon deep within, crying to be remembered. And so we pause here, not in judgment, but in compassion. For what is the story of the Ice King if not a reminder of fragility? How thin the veil between wisdom and madness, between love and obsession, between memory and loss. The throne teaches us that anyone given enough burden might fracture. And yet, even in fracture there can be beauty. For the shards of Simon still gleam in the frost, catching the light, refusing to fade. The journey through the palace ends here, yet its lessons remain. In dreams, in nightmares, in echoes and in songs, we have seen the shape of a soul, both broken and enduring. The Ice King's tale is not one of simple tragedy, but of resilience. Though consumed by ice, he continued to seek love. Though trapped in madness, he continued to create. Though forgotten, he continued to remember. As we turn away from the throne, the palace seems to sigh as if relieved. The frost softens, the air warms by a degree, and the silence becomes gentle once more. Our steps lead us outward, back into the wider dream of the world. But the memory of this chamber lingers like a melody that cannot be silenced. The throne of ice stands eternal, holding within it not just the story of the Ice King, but the story of us all, fragile, yearning, transformed by the crowns we wear. Pause.